I tell Renee sometimes, I'm so dorky. I'm owning my dorkiness now. So welcome to Spiritual Soul Center. You know, we are here to create a movement grounded in loving kindness that transforms us, our community, and the world. That's what we're here to do. And it's a daily thing. It's all the time. You know, it's just not on Sunday morning. It's all the time. We're here to create a movement grounded in loving kindness that transforms us, our community. We should always have plenty of time to pray, right? Let's take a deep breath in and out. And you feel that joy coming up in your heart? Yeah. You feel that joy from being part of a community, being part of a community that's making a difference. Being part of something bigger than just me and what I want and what I'm trying to accomplish. Being part of a movement that takes care of each other, that cares about each other, that wants everyone to feel safe, to have enough to eat, to feel important, and to feel heard. That's where this joy is coming from. Our soul is saying, yes, 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 to all of that. Let's stay there. Let's commit to being open to the energy of our own soul. To smile and to know all is well, my friends, all is well. Amen. Well, thank you for writing this card. I know beforehand that it's beautiful. So, all right, Pat. Here's what Pat says. What do you want this to be in your life and for others? She said, community with friends and like-minded people. I want to contribute to the community. I want to help others through community projects. Yeah, that's a big thing of what Soul Center is about, because it's grow, serve, transform, right? How do you want it to feel? Positive and welcoming. Anybody feel that?
Yes.
And how will you bless this space? I will bring my best, good energy to this space. Yeah? How about that? Thank you, Pat. If we just did that everywhere we went, just bring good energy into the space, whatever space it is, yeah? Well, I told you last week that it would be the last time I would talk about how to care for the soul. And then Robert comes up to me afterwards and says, you can talk about it again. So I'm blaming you. I don't know if it was you, but I'm blaming you. He's like, it wasn't like I didn't say anything. No, it could have been Lyndon. It could have been Lyndon. But, so, I'm going to talk about it again. And I want y'all to remember what it is that, I've been using the book, The Untethered Soul, because Michael Singer really gives us a way to experience soul. Like when you say, I am soul, I am soul, what's that mean? What's that mean? And we had the experience of that I am not my body, I am not my emotions, I am not my experiences, I am the one who's having those experiences. I am the one who's having those emotions. I am the one behind it all in me who's having this experience. I am the observer. Like that is the seat of the soul. Okay, like that we say, well, that's my spiritual essence, that's my, yes. And that's kind of a way to think about it, because how else do you describe it to someone? Or even to yourself, how do you know what that is? That's that place back there, that seat behind me that is observing all this. That is the seat of the soul. It is not your accomplishments. It's not your failures. It's not how much money you have. It's not anything in the outer at all, because it's that in me, that observer, that's having this experience of this. And in this book, Love Without End, Jesus Speaks, Jesus says this about the soul that I've shared the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I'll share it one more time. The soul in me, that soul is crying out for a reality experience which only physical life can give it. Like that's what the soul is. The soul is the spiritual essence, but it can't have this experience without having this body. Like here we are, right? And we have emotions, and we have this body, and we have these experiences, and we have these accomplishments and failures. And the soul gets to experience that through the body. And the body is crying out, because our bodies are crying out too, for an immortality experience which only the soul can give it. Because the soul that we are is that immortal spiritual essence that we are. Eternal, immortal, always. Okay? So these two together, it says you have to permit, well, as you permit the union to fulfill itself, you will know what it feels like to be the love that you are. Like bazinga, right? That's what the soul's about. So last week, I talked about a practice from Michael Singer's book and said if you want to really care for your soul, you have to decide, he suggests, to never close your heart down. No matter what is happening out here, you keep your heart open. You don't do this, right? I said if your heart is open, you're walking around like this all the time. You're walking around like this all the time. You're not walking around like this, which, happens to me every day, a few times a day. So, but what he says to do is when you're feeling that tension, when you're feeling yourself about to close down, you talk to yourself, which is really your soul. That's that voice that's wise, the wise one, not the other one. It says, I'm not going to shut down. I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to stay open. I'm going to let this come into me. I'm going to let it pass through. I'm not going to close myself. I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to let it keep my heart open, because there is nothing in this world that is worth closing my heart over. Nothing. And I shared with you last week how much energy there is in that. We have an immense amount of energy in our spiritual self, in our soul. It's like that energy I said, when the story of the person going past and lifting a car off somebody, you say that's adrenaline. No, that's soul energy right there. That's beyond adrenaline. That's beyond the body. That's soul energy. And we have it. Or something happens and you get that phone call. I said I was sitting at home having a glass of wine, winding down from the day, and somebody calls in crisis. Bam! Like I have more energy than I could ever have. Where does that come from? That's soul energy. And that's what we don't want to block. We don't want to block that off, right? We want to keep it flowing. That's the practice. I hope you practiced with some of that stuff this week, did you? I like to use driving as an example because we all drove to get here. And sometimes we're not very patient on the road with other drivers. And so there's a simple way to practice. I'm just not going to take that in. I'm not going to let that disturb my soul. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to keep my heart open. Instead of, well, many things you could choose to do in a car, right? But here's the thing I was thinking about this week. Here's the thing I was thinking about is, that's easy for me to say, isn't it? That's easy to say. Well, just don't close your heart. But what about the hard stuff? Like, what about the really hard stuff? Because there's some hard stuff that we experience, isn't there? Like, there's some really hard stuff. Well, Paula just said to keep my heart open. I'm like, man, but there's some hard stuff there. And I wrote down a few things about some of the hard stuff. Like, what does it feel like when somebody makes a promise to you and then breaks it and never doesn't tell you about it? Like, doesn't talk to you? Like, that hurts, doesn't it? That hurts. What about if you're the one that's not invited? Right? Or what about if you hear, you're not welcome here. You don't belong here and you're not welcome here. Ouch. Right? Well, Paula said just keep my heart open. Man, it's tougher, isn't it? What about the feeling of feeling wrong, feeling unlovable, feeling like a failure? Like, am I just supposed to keep my heart open to all that? Like, that's harder stuff, isn't it? One of the most poignant example that I can give that happened not in my life, but in my dad's life. My grandfather, my dad's dad, was an alcoholic. And I overheard this story, my dad telling it to somebody maybe, or maybe he said it to me, I can't remember. It's been a long time ago. But my dad was visiting his dad at the hospital. He was dying of cirrhosis of the liver. And he said to my dad this. He used to call my dad Sonny. My dad's name was Tony. And he used to be known as Sonny. And he said, Sonny, you never were any good and you'll never be any good. Right from his deathbed. And I imagined, wow. Oh, just keep your heart open, Pops. Man, that is hard stuff. And I wonder, I never really talked to my dad about that, but I wonder how it affected his life. And how he had to protect himself and close his heart to that when his dad, he's an only child, tell him he was basically worthless. He never would amount to anything. That's a lot harder. That's a lot more pain, isn't it? A lot more painful. Here's some other things that are painful. Anger, fear, jealousy, worry, embarrassment, doubt, insecurity, shame, grief, rejection, resentfulness. The feeling of feeling stupid, unloved and unlovable, unimportant, not good enough, like you don't matter. Woo! Can the list go on and on? What happens with those things is we have an experience and it gets stuck in us. It gets stuck in us. And when something happens on the outside that touches that thing, we feel it all over again, don't we? Over and over again, because that pain is stuck. There was no open heart flowing through, in and out. That's not what happened. It got stuck in there, didn't it? That's what happens with tough things like that. But here's the thing. Pain is a feeling. It is not a problem. Let me say that again. Pain is a feeling. It is not a problem. We make it a problem. Pain is a fact of life, really. Who in here has never had any pain? Yeah, right? Like, we all have pain. We all have pain. All the time. Yeah, I saw you. Liar, liar, pants on fire. We all have pain, but if we are willing to let it go through us instead of get it stuck in us, there's the thing. There's the thing. To experience, because the soul is saying, yeah, I do want to know what that feels like to be rejected. I do want to know what it feels like. Because I can't know that without you, without this body. But I don't have to live it for the rest of my life. I don't have to. But that's the kind of thing we do. Well, Singer has this phenomenal story that I have to share with you because this is an example, a metaphor for how we deal with that pain. Because we hang on to it. We hang on to it. And here's the story that, which tab is it? Here it is. He says, he gives this as an example of how we can solve our personal problems. Because the real transformation happens when we use our problems for growth. So here's the story. Imagine that you have a thorn in your arm, and it touches directly on a nerve.
Ouch.
Yeah, ouch, right? When the thorn is touched, it's painful, and because it hurts so much, this is a serious problem. It's difficult to sleep because when you roll over on it, it's hard to get close to people because they might touch it. It makes your daily life very difficult. You can't even go for a walk in the woods because you might brush against a bush, and it might cause the thorn to hurt. This thorn is a constant source of disturbance, and to solve the problem, you only have two choices. You know what they are. The first choice is to look at your situation and decide that since it's so disturbing when it's touched, you need to make sure that nothing touches it. Right? The second choice is that since it's so disturbing when something touches it, is that you need to take it out. Right? So, if you decide you have to keep things from touching the thorn, then that becomes a work of your life. Here's the example. It's great. If you want to go for a walk in the woods, you'll have to thin out the branches to make sure you don't brush against them. And since you roll over often and touch the thorn when you sleep, you'll have to find a solution for that as well. Perhaps you could design an apparatus that acts as a protective device. If you really put a lot of energy into it, your solution seemed to work, you would think you had solved your problem. You'd say, I can sleep now, and guess what? I got to go on TV to do a testimonial. And anybody who has the thorn problem can get my protective device. And I can get paid royalties for it. So now you've got your whole life built around this thorn. Are you seeing that? And you're proud of it. You keep the woods thinned out and you wear your apparatus to bed at night. Check. But now you have a new problem. You fell in love. Oh. This is a problem because in your situation it's even hard to hug. Nobody can touch you because they might touch the thorn. So you design another kind of device that allows closeness amongst people without actually touching. Eventually you decide you want total mobility without having to worry about the thorn anymore, so you make a full-time device that doesn't have to be unstrapped or strapped on at night or changed over for hugging and other daily activities. But it's heavy, so you put it on wheels. Control it with hydraulics. Install collision sensors. It's actually quite an impressive device. Of course, you had to change the doors to your house so that you could get it in and out. But now, at least you can live your life. You can go to work, you can sleep, you can get close to people, and so you announce to everyone, I have solved my problem. I am a free being. I can go anywhere I want and do anything I want. That thorn used to run my life, and now it doesn't run anything. Well, you know, this next line, the truth is, it completely runs everything in your life. Completely. Because I've left the pain in me, and I try to find ways to protect myself from not feeling what I have let get stuck in myself. We all have these sensitivities about loneliness, about rejection, about our physical appearance, about our mental prowess. We are all walking around with a lot of thorns touching right against the most sensitive part of our hearts, and at any moment something can touch them and cause pain inside. You have two choices about what's going on inside of you. You can take it out, or you can keep protecting yourself. That's the choice you have. So here's an example. I think I'm going to project and say, we might all have had this example. You're about to go in the grocery store. You get a glimpse through the window. There's somebody in there you prefer not to run into. Could be an ex, could be a neighbor, could be a family member. You're like, you don't want to run into them. Are you looking down every aisle before you go? Like, you know, you're laughing because y'all done it. And I have too. You don't want to run. Why do we not want to run into that person? Because the thorn in us is still there, and it's going to get picked at if we run into that person, right? You think you've forgiven your ex. You think you've forgiven your neighbor. You think you've forgiven your neighbor, your family member, but you haven't, because the thorn is still there. All right, maybe it wasn't the grocery store. Maybe it was, you know, the coffee shop, wherever it was. Maybe you didn't even go in the coffee shop. You're like, oh, Starbucks down the road, right? Like, the thorn is still there, but our work is to get rid of the thorn, not to protect it. Not to protect it. And because we can be aware of ourselves in that example, we can say, that's what I'm doing here. That's what I'm doing. It's still in there. It's why I can't keep my heart open, because there's pain in there. It's real. It's not fake. It's not like, oh, just keep your heart open. Now I got to realize I have this pain in there. And I'm ready to take the thorn out instead of protect myself with my apparatus. Right? And we build those. We are good at building those. Our psyche is good because we don't want to feel hurt. We don't want to feel bad. We don't want to feel bad about ourselves. We don't want to. But when we sit in the seat of our soul, we can let it pass through us. We can have the experience, and some of them are just, they're gut-wrenching. They're hard. But we can let them move through. That is an ability we have. It's the old, this too shall pass, right? That's a story that is an ancient story, and I want to put a new twist on it, but it's the story of King Solomon's ring. You've heard this before, haven't you? One day Solomon decided that his most trusted minister, he said, I want this certain ring, and I want you to bring it to me, and I want to wear it for this Feast of the Tabernacles. So that gives you 6 months to find this ring. And the servant says, yeah, and if it exists on the earth, I will find it. I will find it. He says, what makes this ring so special, though? What is it? The king said, it has magic powers in it. If a happy man looks at it, he becomes sad. And if a sad man looks at it, he becomes happy. Well, the king said, I knew that ring didn't exist anywhere. I was just kind of to this, trying to get some humility for this man. So spring passed, and then summer, and he still had no idea where he could find the ring. And so on the night before the festival, he decided to make a walk in one of the poorest quarters in Jerusalem. And he passed by a merchant who had begun to set out the day's wares on a shabby carpet. And he says to this merchant, have you by chance heard of a magic ring that makes the happy wearer forget their joy and the broken-hearted wearer forget his sorrows? He watched the grandfather take a plain gold ring from his carpet and engrave it. And when he read the words on the ring, his face broke out in a smile. And he was so happy to share this with the king. And so the king says, well, have you found that ring? Thinking, there is no way that he found this ring. They were all laughing at him. He says, well, here it is, your majesty. Here is the gold ring. Solomon read the inscription, and the smile vanished from his face. The jeweler had written 3 Hebrew letters, which were the starting letters of the Hebrew phrase that means, this too shall pass. This too shall pass. And at that moment, of course, Solomon realizes that all his riches are not going to last forever, right? And the servant was happy after having been sad. But the wisdom in this story for me today is to know that I have the ability for things to pass through me. I mean, that's the wisdom. It's a little bit different twist to the story, but this too shall pass through me. This too, it is possible for this to pass. Will it leave a mark? Well, yeah, it'll leave a mark. It'll leave wisdom. It'll leave strength. Is there anything hard that you've gone through that hasn't left you with something that is purposeful in your life today? The ability you had to overcome? You know, I mean, incredible. Those things that you say, well, I would never have wished this on anybody, but because I had this experience, this, oh my gosh, let it pass through. That's the message, let it pass. So it still is the same message of keeping your heart open, deciding not to close your heart, but to realize that that pain is real, that thorn is real, and I always have a choice. Two choices. Build up enough around it so nobody touches it, or take it out. Or take it out. Those are the two choices. So my mantra today, let it pass. Let it pass through. Let it flow. All is well. Okay? We have to teach ourselves. Let it pass through. Let it pass. Let it flow. All is well. So, I might talk about the soul next week. Or I might not. But this story, it was too brilliant not to share it with you today. So I hope that was meaningful to you. So let's have a time of meditation now. Let's get comfortable in our seat. Let's take a deep breath in. And here's another thorn. It's the thorn of not judging yourself where you are today and how many thorns you have. I mean, that's a thorn in itself, you know. That's a thorn in itself. Let that go. Let it go. So I have these thorns. Everyone has these thorns. Everyone is vulnerable to people touching the pain that we've all decided to get stuck in our very self. So let's just be with that. Let's be with that. Let's acknowledge that. Let's sit with that. And simply breathe in and out. Say, all is well. All is well with my soul. All is well. and out. And listen to this. Chapter 1 of my life. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I'm helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place. But it isn't my fault. And it still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down a different street. Energy flowing, heart open. You can't do that with a closed heart, can you?
Can't do it.
Can't do it. You can't do it.
That's why I play it right here, right in front of my heart.
See that? See that? There it is, right there. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So let's close at Spiritual Soul Center as we do with this prayer. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. May all beings be filled with loving kindness. May all be well. May all be peaceful and at ease. May all be happy. And so it is. Until next time.